My wife called me at work. She said, "I just inherited my aunt's fortune, $600 million. Pack your things and leave our apartment immediately." When I returned home, she already had separation papers prepared. I signed them calmly and said, "Enjoy your new fortune." My name is Eliseo. I'm 49 years old, and exactly 47 days ago, my wife summoned me to her office in the middle of a workday to tell me 5 words that ended an 18-year marriage. I've just inherited $600 million. Before I could fully comprehend that number, she slid documents across her desk and added with a cold smile, "Pack your things and get out of our apartment now." When I arrived home that afternoon, all my personal documents were neatly placed on the table. The separation papers were already signed by her. Only my signature was missing. I sat down, read every page in silence, picked up the pen, and signed without speaking. She stood near the window, watching. When I finished, I stood, met her eyes, and said, "Enjoy your new fortune, Nyla." She laughed, loudly, as if she had just heard the greatest joke of her life. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have imagined, was that 47 days later, that laughter would become the worst mistake of her life. But I'm getting ahead of the story. This didn't begin with shouting or slammed doors. It started much earlier, in a life so ordinary it could belong to anyone. I'm a civil engineer. I work for a mid-sized construction company. I supervise projects, review plans, and sign permits. I leave home at 6 a.m. before sunrise and return around 7 p.m. after dark. I followed that routine for 18 years. I paid every bill: rent, utilities, groceries, services. There was always food on the table. Power was never cut. Payments were never late. We were stable. We were secure. We were, as Nyla began saying in recent years, boring. Nyla worked in HR at a medium-sized firm. She earned a good salary. Together, we lived comfortably. Not wealthy, but not struggling. 1 vacation a year, a reliable car, a 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet area. I believed that was enough. I believed building a life meant stability, respect, and partnership. I was wrong. About 3 years ago, she changed. She started following millionaire lifestyles on social media. Women with luxury handbags, imported cars, trips to Dubai, men wearing watches worth more than our apartment, influencers promoting success and wealth attraction programs. She spent hours watching those curated lives, and every time she looked at me, I saw disappointment, as if I represented the proof that she had chosen incorrectly. We didn't argue. She didn't shout or confront me. She simply withdrew. Short answers, meals spent scrolling on her phone, sleeping turned away from me. I tried to talk. I asked if she was okay, if she needed anything, if I should change something. Her response was always the same: "I'm just tired from work." And I accepted it, or chose to. There was one person Nyla openly disliked, her Aunt Melissa. Melissa was 78 years old and lived alone in an old house on the edge of the city. She never married and had no children. The family mentioned her rarely, often with embarrassment. They called her eccentric, strange, bitter. Nyla described her with contempt. She said Melissa was a crazy old woman who wasted her life collecting useless things in a decaying house. According to her, Melissa had never contributed anything meaningful. I met Melissa once at a family gathering 15 years ago. She struck me as sharp, intelligent, and observant. After that, I began visiting her. At first, it was occasional. I passed near her house after work and stopped by. She made tea. We talked about books, architecture, and how the city had changed. Soon, I visited every Sunday for 15 years. Nyla never knew, not because I hid it, but because she never asked. On Sunday mornings, I'd leave. She assumed I went to the gym or for a walk. She showed no interest. Melissa and I became genuine friends. She told me about her past, the businesses she quietly managed, the decisions she made at a time when women rarely had authority. I helped around the house, repairs, gardening, small fixes. It was companionship, nothing more. 4 months ago, Melissa called me late on a Tuesday. Her voice was weak. She said she wasn't feeling well and needed help getting to the hospital. I went immediately. She was hospitalized for 3 days. Doctors said her heart was failing. She knew it. She told me calmly, as if discussing routine news. Eliseo, I have weeks left, maybe a month. You've been the only person who treated me like a human being. Thank you for every Sunday. 2 weeks before she passed, she gave me a small wooden box. Inside were folded papers and old envelopes. She said, "Keep this. Open it only after I'm gone. Don't ask questions, just trust me." I placed the box in my office cabinet and didn't think much of it. Melissa died on a Thursday morning. I was there. Nyla never visited the hospital. The funeral was on Saturday. 12 people attended. Nyla came, but spent most of the time on her phone. She didn't cry. As we left, she said, "At least the old woman's show is over." Those were exactly her words. Then came the Tuesday that split my life into before and after. At 11 a.m., I was reviewing calculations at a construction site when my phone rang. It was Nyla. Her voice was sharp and urgent. "Eliseo, come to my office right now. It's urgent." She hung up before I could respond. I asked my supervisor, Enrique, for permission to leave. He looked concerned, put his shoulder on my arm. "Go. Family comes first." During the 25-minute drive, I imagined every possible emergency. I arrived at her office building and took the elevator to the 4th floor. The receptionist greeted me with a strange expression, sympathetic as if she knew something I didn't. I knocked. "Come in." Nyla sat behind her desk, dressed in a gray suit she wore only for important occasions. Her appearance was impeccable. Her smile was wide but cold. She asked me to close the door and sit. On her desk were neatly stacked documents, folders, and aligned pens, everything prepared. She told me her aunt's lawyer had called. She explained that Melissa had properties, investments, and company shares. Then she delivered the number. $600 million. I was stunned, but happy. I smiled and said this changed our lives, our future. She stopped me with a raised hand. "Our future? No, my future." She pushed the separation papers toward me. They were dated 2 days earlier. She said she felt trapped for years, that our life was small and uninspiring, that I was reliable and hard-working, but not enough, that she deserved more, and this inheritance was her way out. She spoke calmly, without emotion. I asked if there was someone else. She said no. "I just don't want this life. I don't want you. You're a good man, but you're a small man." I read the documents carefully. She kept everything except my personal items and car. The apartment was hers from the start. She wanted me gone within 24 hours. I signed without hesitation. When I finished, I looked at her and said, "Enjoy your new fortune, Nyla." She laughed, loudly, confidently. "Thanks for making it easy. You were always predictable." I left. At the apartment, my documents were organized on the table. I packed 2 suitcases, only my belongings, no shared memories. 18 years fit into 2 bags. I checked into a small hotel. I sat on the bed and stared at the room. I didn't feel anger or sadness, just emptiness.
I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of the hotel room, listening to cars moving along the street, distant voices from other guests, and the steady hum of the aging air conditioner. I replayed the last 18 years in my mind, searching for signs I should have noticed earlier. They were all there. Nyla no longer asked about my day. She stopped touching me, even casually. Her eyes brightened when she looked at strangers' lives online, but lost all interest when she looked at me. The signs had always existed. I chose to ignore them because believing we were happy was easier. At 6 a.m., I showered, put on my usual work clothes, and drove to the construction site. Enrique saw me arrive and walked over immediately. He asked if everything was okay, if my wife was fine. I told him the truth, clearly and without details. We separated yesterday, Enrique. She inherited a large amount of money and decided she no longer needed me. He paused, then gave me an awkward but sincere hug. He told me he was sorry and said I could take time off if I needed it. I declined. I needed to work. I needed to stay occupied. He understood. The days that followed felt automatic. I woke up, worked, ate something quick, returned to the hotel, slept poorly, and repeated the cycle. I didn't search for a new apartment yet. I lacked the energy. The hotel was enough for the moment. A week after the rushed separation, something shifted. Nyla began appearing everywhere, not in person, but online. She created accounts on every major social media platform. Her first post showed her wearing expensive sunglasses at a high-end restaurant. The caption read, "New life, new me, no limits." The response was immediate. Comments flooded in. Friends I didn't know she had congratulated her. Strangers asked for her secret. She replied with money symbols and champagne emojis. 3 days later, she posted a photo beside a bright red sports car. The caption said, "When the universe rewards you for breaking free from what held you back." The car was worth at least $200,000. Her follower count jumped dramatically within hours. People admired her, envied her, wanted to be like her. Almost overnight, Nyla became a minor local celebrity. Influencers followed her. Brands contacted her for partnerships. She posted constantly: luxury breakfasts, 5-star hotels, shopping in stores where a single bag cost more than my monthly income, spa visits, private yoga sessions. Her life appeared flawless and carefully filtered. A week later, she announced she had quit her job. In a video filmed on the terrace of a luxury location, she said she had spent too many years tied to schedules, bosses, and a life that didn't belong to her. Now, she claimed, she was free and encouraging others to chase their dreams. The video spread quickly, gaining tens of thousands of views. Some comments asked about me, what happened to her husband, where I was. She never responded. I was removed entirely from her story, as if I had never existed. I didn't follow her accounts, but people sent me screenshots. Coworkers, acquaintances, even distant connections asked if the story was true, if she had really inherited $600 million, if she had really left me. I always answered the same way. Yes, it's true. I wish her well. Most people didn't know how to respond after that. Some tried to comfort me. Others looked at me as if I were foolish for signing the papers so quickly. But there was nothing else to do. She didn't want me. I wasn't going to ask someone to stay out of obligation or pity. A month after the separation, Nyla hosted a large party. She shared everything live. It was held in a private hall at a luxury hotel. There were waiters carrying champagne, professionally prepared food, and a live DJ. She invited around 200 people, many of whom barely knew her. They were there because she was the woman with $600 million. In one video, she stood in the center of the dance floor holding a drink and shouted, "This is freedom! This is real living!"
The camera followed her like she was a celebrity. During the party, someone asked about her ex-husband. The moment was captured on video. Nyla laughed, took a long sip from her glass, and said, "My ex was a good man, but he was small. Small dreams, small ambitions, a small life. I needed more. Sometimes you have to drop the baggage to fly." The crowd applauded her honesty. The video reached me as well. I watched it several times. Each time it hurt less, as if I had exhausted my ability to feel pain. While Nyla built a public image, I searched for a modest apartment. One bedroom, quiet area. I rented the first one I saw. I bought basic furniture, a bed, a table, 2 chairs, and a used armchair. I unpacked my clothes and hung a single photo on the wall, a mountain landscape from a trip taken 10 years earlier. That was my new life, contained within 40 square meters. I continued working and delivering results. Enrique assigned me additional responsibilities, likely to keep me occupied. I accepted all of them. I arrived early and left late. On weekends, I worked on calculations and plans, anything to avoid thinking. Sundays were the hardest. I used to visit Melissa on Sundays. Now I had nowhere to go. On one of those empty Sundays, I remembered the wooden box Melissa had given me. It was still in my office, forgotten during the chaos of the separation. The next Monday, I retrieved it from the cabinet. It was covered in dust. That night, I brought it to my apartment and placed it on the table. I stared at it for many minutes. Opening it felt like closing the last connection to Melissa, but she had asked me to open it after her death. Nearly 2 months had passed. I opened the box. Inside were neatly folded documents. The first was a handwritten letter from Melissa. She thanked me for the Sundays, for treating her with dignity when others ignored her. She said she had made a decision I might not understand immediately, and asked me to trust her one last time. Beneath the letter were legal documents, copies of a will. I read them slowly. Then again, my heart began to race. The language was clear and legally certified. Melissa had left everything to one person. That person was me, Eliseo Marquez, sole beneficiary of all assets, properties, investments, and holdings. I searched for an explanation. I found a notarized letter from her lawyer explaining that the previous will, leaving everything to Nyla, had been revoked and replaced. The total value exceeded $640 million. I sat on the floor, surrounded by papers, unable to process it. Further documents explained what Nyla had received: old records, debt histories, documents with no real financial value. The lawyer had given her exactly what Melissa left her, nothing more. Nyla had assumed the rest. Melissa had anticipated everything. Her final message instructed me not to seek revenge. It was already unfolding. I put the documents away and waited. Days passed. I kept my routine. Nyla continued posting, trips, purchases, luxury living, unaware it was all built on debt. She bought a penthouse with loans. The car was financed. The jewelry and travel were all borrowed money. 3 weeks later, the collapse began. The banks called. Questions followed. Her posts slowed, then stopped. Eventually, the truth emerged, publicly. The banks accused her of fraud. Media outlets picked up the story. The illusion was over. The woman who had openly displayed her supposed millionaire inheritance across social media was now being described as bankrupt. Public reaction to the news articles was harsh. The same people who once praised her quickly turned against her. They labeled her dishonest, fraudulent, and pathetic. Old screenshots of her posts were shared widely, highlighting her claims about abundance and the universe rewarding courage. Her words were mocked relentlessly. One video resurfaced in which she spoke about me, calling me insignificant and describing me as a burden. That clip circulated thousands of times, often paired with comments asking who was small now and calling the situation instant karma. I read those reactions from a distance. I felt no satisfaction, only a deep and quiet sadness. On Saturday, Nyla posted her final public video. She sat in her car, without makeup, her hair unstyled, visibly crying. She said the situation had been a terrible misunderstanding. She explained that she truly believed she had inherited the fortune, and that all her decisions were based on information she later learned was incorrect. She acknowledged facing the consequences and asked forgiveness from her audience, the brands that trusted her, and her family. After a long pause, she addressed me directly, saying my name and admitting that leaving me had been the biggest mistake of her life. She said she did not expect forgiveness and only needed to say it. The video ended there. I did not respond. I did not contact her. Any response would have meant stepping back into chaos that no longer belonged to me. The next day, Nyla deleted all her social media accounts and disappeared completely from public view. Her personal assistant later posted that she no longer worked for Nyla and wished her well in recovery. Nyla's remaining followers faded away quietly. Her rise and fall had lasted only 2 months. That same afternoon, lawyer Camilo called and requested an urgent meeting. I went to his office early Monday. Papers covered his desk, and he appeared exhausted. He explained that Nyla had hired a defense attorney who was attempting to challenge the fraud charges. That lawyer had discovered there was another beneficiary in Melissa's will and was formally requesting my identity. Their strategy was to claim I manipulated Melissa into changing the will. Camilo assured me they had no evidence to support that claim. Medical records confirmed Melissa was mentally sound, and there were videos and testimonies documenting her intentions. The will was legally solid. However, my name would soon become public, and Nyla would learn the truth. Camilo warned that desperation could lead to unpredictable behavior and advised me to keep a low profile and avoid all contact with her. I agreed. 3 days later, while reviewing plans at the construction site, Enrique told me a woman was demanding to see me at the entrance. I already knew who it was. I walked downstairs and saw Nyla standing by the fence. It had been nearly 2 months since our divorce, but she looked drastically different. She wore no makeup, simple clothes, and appeared physically exhausted. Most noticeable was the absence of confidence. She spoke first, asking to talk. I told her there was nothing left to discuss. She cried and admitted she had made a serious mistake, driven by greed and illusion. She told me she had discovered I inherited Melissa's fortune. I confirmed it. I explained the truth calmly. I had visited Melissa every Sunday for years, never expecting anything. She made her choice freely. It was not manipulation, only consequence. Nyla collapsed emotionally and begged for help, asking me to share the inheritance. I reminded her of her own words and actions. I explained that she made decisions for her future, and now I was doing the same, not out of revenge, but because our relationship had ended. I wished her well, but refused to help. She reacted with anger, accusing me of cruelty. I responded that I was not enjoying her suffering, but I would not shield her from responsibility. I walked away and did not look back. In the following days, media coverage intensified after my identity as the heir was leaked. Articles framed the story as poetic irony. Public opinion was divided. Journalists attempted to contact me, but I followed Camilo's advice and remained silent. Enrique protected me from reporters at work. A week later, Nyla's cousin Karina told me Nyla had lost the penthouse and was living with her mother. She asked if I could show compassion. I replied that compassion does not mean erasing consequences. Nyla was responsible for her own choices. Her legal case continued. Ultimately, Nyla accepted a settlement. She pled guilty to financial negligence and misuse of documents. She received probation, community service, and responsibility for over $300,000 in debt. The media reported the outcome widely. I felt no victory, only emptiness. Afterwards, I decided to act on the inheritance. I met with Camilo and rejected a life of excess. Inspired by Melissa's quiet values, I chose to create a foundation dedicated to elderly care. The Melissa Contreras Foundation was established with an initial endowment of $200 million. We built the first center, Casa Melissa, within 6 months. It provided dignified care, companionship, and stability for seniors. I visited every Sunday, not as a benefactor, but as a listener. Over time, the foundation expanded to multiple cities. My personal life remained modest. I stayed in my apartment, worked my job, and avoided attention. 2 years later, I received an apology email from Nyla. I read it, saved it, and did not respond. It was part of her healing, not mine. Years passed. The foundation grew. I retired from construction to focus fully on the mission. I remarried quietly. Life found balance. Eventually, Nyla contacted me again to share she had paid her debts and rebuilt her life. This time, I replied briefly, wishing her well. That was enough.